my pleasure to welcome Deputy Constable Howard Kindred Sr. To the King's Report. Welcome to the King's Report.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're happy to meet you and to talk about some different issues than we've spoken about in the past. So you and I, before we started this interview, we were talking about, well, the fact that you were in the Merchant Marine, you're a New York Police Department auxiliary police officer, and you're a Pennsylvania State Constable deputy. And so thank you for your service in many different ways to the people of New York and also Pennsylvania.
Quite welcome.
Yeah. And then also you're explaining that you had a liver transplant. Can you explain to the listeners a little bit about what, just briefly, why you need a transplant and where you received your transplant from?
Sure. In 1970, I was in a car accident and I had a blood transfusion that gave me hepatitis C. And it took 25 years for the cirrhosis to set in. The hepatitis C virus destroyed my liver, and I was put on the liver transplant list. And I happened to be at the hospital, Presbyterian Hospital in New York City, Columbian Presbyterian. But back in 1970, they didn't even know about hepatitis C. It was they called it non-A, non-B. So they're not at fault for giving me the blood transfusion. There was no way to check it out. And then now today they have blood tests they don't give the blood out to innocent people. And then so I received my first liver transplant in 1995. It all went well. And then in 2008, I needed a second liver transplant due to hepatic artery thrombosis. And that's where the hepatic artery gets blocked and no blood goes to the bile ducts. So eventually the liver dies. And then I was put back on the list, waited 2 years, and I got my second liver transplant. And that came from a young girl who was in an automobile accident, Heather Miller. And her family agreed to her wishes that she wanted to become an organ donor. Because if the family says no, it's no, no matter what the organ donor says. And she was only a month away from graduating, being a nurse, when she died in April of 1998. What a shame.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that's something that we don't often think about, is that the people who are willing to donate their organs, pass on a gift, right? To you and to others. I imagine other people benefited as well. So that, yeah.
And if the family says no, it's no, but then you have two people being buried instead of just one.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, my understanding is that you started and ran the Northeast Pennsylvania Transplant Support Group.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I found that in 1995. All what I went through, I compiled all that information, and I tried to make it easier for the next person how to go through what I went through. I did all the legwork. I had all the numbers of Air Lifeline to come and fly you to Pittsburgh for free. We made a contract at a discounted rate for a care coach to come pick up the people at the airport, the transplant candidate, and drive them to Pittsburgh Hospital, University of Pittsburgh. So I did all that groundwork, and that helped them out immensely. And for the membership, we only charged $15 a year. And I didn't want to raise it any more than that, and we kept that for 20 years that we were in business, $15 a year. That's one thing I'm proud of.
And tell us, so did you have discussions in the support group?
Yeah, we met at Pocono Medical Hospital monthly on the transplant recipients, candidates, and donor families. We met once a month. And also we held hepatitis C meetings because a lot of people that needed transplants had hepatitis C. So we had 2 support group meetings every month going back and forth. Helped out a lot of people.
I see. Okay. So what in the discussions tell us about the discussions in the support group or
well, we were lucky that we had a emergency room doctor also had a liver transplant. And I was immense help to them and their family, to him and his family. And then he decided that he wanted to give back and get involved in my organization. And then, he became president of the organization. And plus having a doctor to answer medical questions is better than me. He knows everything, you know what I mean? And plus being a transplant recipient of himself, he could really answer the questions in medical terms that we all could understand. It was fantastic.
Yeah. How many people over the 20 years do you think participated in the support group?
Thousands.
Thousands. Okay.
We even had a newsletter that we gave out, and we dispersed that out throughout the whole state, and even people if they wanted out of state. And at one time, we even held support group meetings in Wayne County at Wayne Hospital. But I would spread myself out too thin then, because I made sure I went to every meeting.
Was the support group affected by the COVID lockdown, or?
Well, by then we closed our doors in 2015 because the internet, the computer, gave a lot of people a lot of help. I mean, more than what we used to. When we started out in 95, the internet wasn't as big as it is now. And there wasn't that much help on there for, support for hepatitis C or support for liver transplants or any kind of transplants. See, no matter what transplant you had, you were welcome to our group. We had people with heart transplants, kidney transplants, liver transplants, whatever. You were welcome. And then other people would share their experience with the new person,
Right. Well, that's a pretty big event in someone's life to have a transplant operation like that. Do you think it changes people's view about life in any way to go through that?
Oh, for sure. For sure. There's a lot of feelings of sorrow for the donor, and the donor's family that said yes to organ donation and gave their loved one's organs to a stranger. And then my donor family wanted to meet me. And I'm so busy that I said, okay, you could meet me on my lunch break, and I happen to be in uniform. And her Jody and Gary Miller came into the pizza restaurant that I used to take my break at. And they took pictures of us. It was a really nice event. We sat down, we had a nice meal. And I got to know, Heather's mother and father. And it was really bonding. We felt like we knew each other a lifetime.
And you said that she was going to become a nurse. She was just about to graduate.
Yes.
And become a nurse. Yeah. So.
And the guy she was with, he was a boyfriend, happened to be drunk driving. And cracked up, and then she became brain dead in the vehicle accident.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I do want to get to the Convention of States. Maybe we should get into that. Why do you support the Convention of States?
Well, even before I heard that there was an organization of the Convention of States, I was thinking of starting an organization similar to that, because, you know, I went from a nonprofit, and I'm going, well, okay, I can make this a nonprofit too. So I started researching it, and I found out that Rick Santorum, who I personally met twice already in Monroe County when he used to have his office here on Main Street. And I found out he was the president of the Convention of States. I says, oh, this is great. There's an organization already formed, no sense in reinventing the wheel. So I wanted to get more involved in it.
Well, I mean, for people who do not know, what is a Convention of States, and why is it needed?
Well, we propose term limits, impose fiscal restraints, and reduce size and power of the federal government.
Okay,
so the federal government's out of control.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Okay.
Definitely agreed. And we have to rein in that power. Even the Justice Department is out of control. I mean, the Attorney General acts like he's Biden's personal attorney. It's got to be straightened out.
All right. So the convention, I believe that's what an article. Is that Article 5 of the Constitution? It talks about how to make changes to the Constitution, you know, amendments to the Constitution, and this is one way to do that.
Yes, it is.
Right. Okay. Now, I know that look, there's no argument from me. We have $32 trillion of debt. The Congress, there's no evidence that either political party has the willingness to get our spending under control. Unfortunately, I mean, there are some Republicans who I believe do want to do that, but I think they're in the minority.
Yes, and this way with term limits, you would be changing them,
right?
You know, instead of being elected forever, because some people just keep electing the people whether they do a good job or not, just because I want to get this over with. You know, I got to go vote. I'll get this over with. I'll vote for the same guy, without even reading or understanding if he's doing a good job or a bad job. You know, they're so busy, and it's not their fault. They're so busy in their own lives, just trying to put bread on the table week to week and hold down a 40, 50-hour week job. You know, and they're looking for time to spend with their family, maybe to watch a movie here and there, to enjoy themselves after working 40, 50 hours a week. And I can't blame them. But term limits will send a shock to all the politicians out there. And the politicians seem to be working for their party and not for the people. They got to work for the people. That's what they're elected to do. They're not elected by their party. They're elected by the people.
Yeah, I mean, I think another issue is that some politicians interpret their position as bringing more benefits to the local district, and not so much about future generations. So the fact that we have trillions of dollars of debt, they really don't think about it very much. They think, well, that's a problem for the future. I'll just bring more benefits to my community, and I'll brag about that, and then more people will vote for me.
Sorry about that. I got a phone call that came in.
Oh, okay.
Spam call.
Okay. Well, I get those as well. Okay, no problem.
I should have shut off my phone, but I didn't think of it.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I mean, there are people who are worried that if enough states approved to have this convention, and I think the Congress also has to approve it as well, they're worried that it would go in a different direction. They're worried that after all, we did have a government after 1770s, after the War of Independence. We had the Articles of Confederation. We did have a government document, and they met in Philadelphia to amend those Articles of Confederation, and they ended up just completely changing it to what we now call the Constitution, right? So what would prevent, if there was a convention of states, what would prevent such a convention from scrapping the Constitution and going in a completely different direction?
Well, there has to be an understanding that the Constitution is what we are working with, and you can never scrap. We should never scrap the Constitution. This was made by our forefathers.
Right.
That had no, how would you say, no horse in the race, Mm-hmm. I mean, George Washington, God bless the guy. He really, he was so humble in being the first president of the United States. He didn't realize that he was going to be the greatest. And so, you have to go and you have to have certain people in charge of this that's not going to turn this around the wrong way. Because it could be turned the wrong way, like you were saying.
Right. So I guess the proponents, if you have three-quarters of the states have to pass a motion.
I think it's 37.
Okay, 37. Okay, 37 states would have to pass a motion to endorse having a convention of states. And I guess theoretically you have 37 representatives at the convention of states who don't want to pass a Marxist a Marxist constitution, I guess. So I guess that would be their argument, that there would be some security against it going in a wrong direction.
They only can do these three things,
right? And according to Convention of States, they're only allowed to do three things to work on. That's the proposed term limits, impose fiscal restraints, reduce the size and power of the federal government. That's all they are allowed to do.
Right.
Not allowed to change anything else.
Right. Yeah, of course, and another approach might be for someone like the 45th President of the United States, who I believe was elected in 2020. If he were to be reelected, he might simply fire half of the federal workforce.
Amen.
Close down a few departments and just do it through strong leadership. And maybe that's why they're indicting him. They definitely do not want him to be elected. So I guess they need to try to put him in prison. And I mean, how old are you, by the way?
I'm 73 years young.
Okay. All right. I mean, do you have optimism about the future of the United States of America?
Oh, yes. Yes. So much so, I want Trump reelected because he's the guy to get the job done.
Okay. I have noticed he has a very strong personality, and that probably scares the shit. It scares the crap out of a lot of people because they're afraid that he'd actually do what he's talking about.
He keeps you guessing, and he keeps our enemies guessing. They don't know.
Right.
I mean, he already showed that at one time he dropped those missiles. Remember, and when he had the Chinese president over at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, in Syria. Yeah, he was having Xi Jinping over for dessert, and during their conversation, he said, "Oh, by the way, we just sent a few missiles to Syria. I hope you enjoy the dessert."
Trump has a strong personality like myself.
Yeah. Okay, well, I really enjoyed our conversation, and any final thoughts that you want to share on the King's Report?
Well, get out there and vote. The most important thing is go and vote, whether it's Republican or Democrat. Just get out and vote. That's our constitutional right, and that's what our founder, George Washington, wanted us to do. We have the right to vote. A lot of other countries don't. And I want fair elections. Nothing cloudy. Open, fair elections. I think we should go back to paper documents. The hell with this computer.
Yeah. Paper ballots on election day. That would be a good. Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, thank you for coming on the King's Report, Mr. Kindred, and God bless.
My pleasure. Thank you.